In the name of the Father, and the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Christ is in our midst. There is a common Arabic expression, I am Orthodox in my bones, or to my bones. It is said with a grin, but there is a truth behind it. To be Orthodox in your bones means this faith is not something you wear like a jacket on and off. It is something that enters your very being, as deep as bone and marrow. Something so permanent that it doesn't need to be defended, but lived. This Orthodox faith is a rock, and when we enter into it, we recognize that it is as native to us as our skin. To be Orthodox is to belong to the living Christ completely, as we are created to be. Today's St. Luke's Gospel gives us an image of this Christ. When the Lord saw her, he had compassion on her and said to her, "Do not weep." And he said, "Young man, I say to you, arise." The widow's only son is being carried to the grave. Death seems final, but when Christ speaks, his word does not just echo into the air. It descends into Hades itself. It reaches into the darkness, and it commands the young man's soul to be released. And death obeys. This is Orthodoxy. We do not follow ideas. We belong to the living God, the God whose voice is obeyed even by death. So when other religions speak loudly, when people question or doubt, we do not need to panic or defend. The church is not one voice among many. She is the ark of salvation. Doubting the faith as though Orthodoxy were just an opinion is not our phronema or mindset. The fathers never spoke of doubt as a virtue. St. Athanasius of Alexandria teaches, the faith we hold is not an invention of men, but a revelation from God, confirmed by the saints. And St. John Chrysostom echoes, the church is shaken by no storm. She is the house founded on the rock. As people who belong to Christ and are part of his body, we must live this faith. The beauty and truth of the faith can be seen in how it echoes through every aspect and facet of life. It isn't a faith only confessed with words. It is lived with the physical body. The faith is something we do. One of the most visible ways we see this in our movements and motion inside this holy temple. In some ways, our behavior in church should reflect the best of ourselves. In here is where we have the strength to be all we aspire to be. Peaceful, loving, kind, modest, and reverential. This isn't because we are putting on a show or some kind of a mask just because we are in church. It is because here, in front of the holy icons of the saints, and in front of Christ's body and blood on the altar, we have every encouragement. In here we have a constant reminder to check ourselves and turn our hearts again towards Christ. So how do we reflect reverence, modesty, and peace? Of course, the ways are endless, but there are a few that we should always keep in mind. First, don't run down the aisles. Simeon, I'm talking to you, son. Also, anyone else who feels this urge, just don't. But really, as parents, we bring our children to church as babies, and we, by God's grace, continue bringing them through all the ages and stages. We do this to bring them to Christ and to teach them from the youngest age. Reverence for the temple means we parents must hold a firm line. our tolerance for our children's behavior should be small. The first noise, the first little outburst, especially during the epistle, gospel, or sermon, warrants gently taking them outside, not to shame them, but to teach them, according to their age, to fear God, to love God. As parents, sometimes this feels like an arena, but truly, this is training grounds for parents and child. May God give us the strength to persevere. As anyone who has been here for even just this service, we do not sit while praying. We stand in the presence of God, and our posture in church should be one of reverence. This prevents us from engaging in casual interaction with our brothers and sisters, from distracting them during service, and even from being physically affectionate with our significant other. Here at All Saints, we do not separate into women's section and men's section in the nave, but we should imagine that we have a respectful distance so we maintain modesty and reverence. Again, these things have nothing to do with appearing holier than we are. We are not yet perfected. We are becoming holy, and we must choose the path moment by moment. If we cannot strive for peace, modesty, and reverence while facing the holy gifts and icons, when will we be able to do that? We want to become Orthodox in our bodies, minds, and souls. Orthodox life is learned not by reading alone, but by living among Orthodox people. Even for those of us who grew up in the faith, we look to examples of others. We constantly look to the Theotokos and the lives of the saints to know how to live, but we should also never forget that we can surround ourselves with living saints, with other Orthodox Christians who are dedicated to Christ. When my own children misbehave, I'll sometimes ask them, have you ever seen Proto-Deacon David act that way? Have you ever heard the good Deacon John say something like that? When we act in ways that our clergymen or their wives do not, we are highly likely to be creating chaos, whether in church or at home. And chaos is the enemy of reverence and peace. That's how we raise Orthodox Christians, by pointing them to faithful examples in the parish. Saint Basil of Caesarea taught, the rule of faith remains unwritten because it is lived. What is received from the fathers is preserved, not on paper, but in the heart and actions of the faithful. So if you are new to Orthodoxy, find someone who has lived the faith for 5 or more years. Watch how they treat new people. Watch how they interact with their children. Watch how they cross themselves, how they care for and bury their loved ones with hope of the resurrection. Watch how they live. This is how the faith is transmitted. Being Orthodox in your bones means living with this passion, not coldness, but steadiness. When doubts knock, your soul is not shaken. When other religions or philosophies speak, you are not moved. When trials come, you stand firm. Saint Isaac of Nineveh says, when the heart is fully given to God, the winds of temptation may blow, but the tree does not fall, for its roots are deep. And if your roots are in the Orthodox Church, you will not fall. Our task then, brothers and sisters, is to live not half in and half out, but fully Orthodox in our bones. This means reverence in the temple, faithfulness in the home, constancy in the heart. It means attaching ourselves to the church that has never changed and teaching our children to love her. May the Lord, who commands even death to obey him, make our faith deep and steady. May he grant that generation after generation in this parish may live and die the Orthodox faith, the faith of the apostles, the faith of the fathers, the faith of the church. May God make us Orthodox to our bones.